Hi and welcome. Here we have the brand new, much anticipated version 5 Paris Megaboard, Paris Series Megaboard. Megaboard because it runs the Mega CPU chip, tons of memory, tons of features. Basically, where we had some memory restrictions with the previous control chips, we just simply don't have that issue on there. There's so much memory on board this chip that we can run pretty much every single option within the multi-Wii software. And the other big advantage of going to the Mega chip is that allows the Cirrus board to actually also operate the RG-Copter software as well as the multi-Wii software. So I'll cover that in a later video, but basically if you want to run the RG-Copter software, you can run that instead of the multi-Wii software. But just for now we're going to go with multi-Wii because we'll all be very familiar with it. Not only does it have the Mega chip, it's got the new metal encased IMU, which features the next generation ITG 3050 accelerometer chip. Basically every chip, every component on this new version of the Paris board is more expensive and better. In the Jurassic Park parlance, we spared no expense, or multi-Wii Copter spared no expense. So updated IMU, it's in a metal case, it's also removable. At the moment it's stuck to the board via the gel pad as normal, but if you want to, shipped with it you get this longer lead, and you can actually unplug the IMU from the board. You have to actually unscrew this case to be able to swap over the lead. If you try and just yank it out, the case actually does captivate it. You'll pull leads out of pins, so don't do that. You actually have to unscrew the case from underneath to remove that loom at that end. But you can put the longer loom in and remotely mount the sensor. Why would you do that? Well, with the new Hunter large chassis airframe coming, you've got a lot of stuff above and below the center line. You've got as much weight below the center line as the airframe as you have above the airframe. So you probably need to get the sensor, mounted lower in the airframe to get closer to the true roll center. Or you might have an airframe design where you can't mount the Paris board at the center of the airframe. You don't have to anymore, because all you have to do is be able to get the sensor itself at the center of the airframe, and that takes away that hassle. So the removable IMU is going to be a very, very, very valuable feature on large airframes and different shapes of airframes for different types of construction. For me, I'm going to be mounting this in a Vampire, and it'll stay on the board because it's pretty close to the right spot on the Vampire anyway. Pardon me. Alright, so removable IMU, very nice feature. The other thing that's very different is the compass module itself is on a really long lead. So you can actually get the mag sensor, current compass sensor, right away from the board. So that can go right out on the tail, sitting out behind the airframe. One thing to note, the arrow on the compass points to the back, the arrow on the IMU points to the front. Okay, back of the compass, front of the IMU. Okay, so we can get the compass right away from all the motor noise, all the ESC noise, all the gimbal motor noises, all those things that have been interfering with the compass. We can get that way, way away and down the back. Or out on a boom. I wouldn't put it on a boom, there's motor wires through it, but we can get this mounted away from any other electrical noise, which is really, really cool feature with this board. There's so many cool features on this board, it's crazy. Somebody asked me what this would have in common with the version 4 board, and I said nothing, and it really is true. The GPS now which is included with the board. Okay, as is the extension lead and a few other accessories I'll go through as we go. All comes included in the price of the board. You can't buy this without the GPS. It's just going to ship with it because everybody wants the GPS really. If you want a cheaper alternative, there is the Air. Okay, so it's a U-Blocks serial GPS. It's a larger antenna size, so it's more sensitive. It's a better shape. I believe Quinton's working on some Delrin mounting blocks for these, just to make them protect them a little bit better. But the other thing is, it's a serial-based USB, which means a very different bit of code when it comes to the programming of this. But more importantly, the serial deals with larger distances and everything better. There was a distance limit with the I2C GPS in the code. It just couldn't go beyond a certain number. But no restrictions like that with the serial GPS. So much more sensitive, bigger antenna, with a smaller footprint. It's a bit taller, but it's a smaller footprint overall. And much better communications with the main board, so should be make for better GPS performance. Okay. The next big change is the input connector. We've gone from an 8-pin connector to a 10-pin connector, which means, guys, if you're actually going to pull this out and pop it back in, you need to be really careful. You can't just yank it because there's 10 pins across there you're sort of getting in and out. So when you take it out, you've got to sort of really wiggle it and edge it out slowly. If you're going to put it back in, you sort of need to seesaw it with a pair of pliers at each end and slowly work it back into the socket. You can't just shove it back in one piece. It's just not going to go. You're going to have to be a bit tender with it because it's 2 extra pins. What are the 2 extra pins? Well, because of the mega chip, we've got direct access to all inputs and outputs possible within the software. So on previous boards, to get auxiliary 3 and auxiliary 4, we had to use a summed input. Don't need to do that anymore. No more sum input required. We can get all 8 channels hardwired into the mega chip. So your normal stick controls plus auxiliaries 1, 2, 3 and 4, all hardwired directly onto the chip. So no more having to worry about summed inputs to get aux 3 and 4 working. It just works now from now on. As well as the 8-way input, we've now got a 14-way output section. 14-way? What the hell are you going to do with 14 outputs? I don't know either. But you could run an octa with gimbal and shutter control, and you've still got 3 outputs left over for I don't know what. But if you want to crunch your own code and run other outputs, or I don't know what else you're going to do, it's all available off this board. Also available on the board is pin 19, which is this one at the end. I'm not going to go into detail, and it's not going to be directly supported, but that can be the input from a Spectrum satellite. Okay, mind you, a Spectrum satellite has to run on 3 volts, and you really should run 2, and there is an availability for 2, so it's not something I would use, but it is an option that's now available on this board. We do have a PWM or satellite input on pin 19, so you could actually run still run your summed input, and you run it to here, this pin 19 here instead, and you don't need this loom at all. You can just take the whole loom away, not required, because you just wire straight into that pin there.